You have never voted for president. I promise you haven't. When you cast your vote for president, you are in fact casting a vote for a slate of electors who will hopefully vote for the candidate who received the majority of votes in your state. This system is called the Electoral College. The Electoral College is outdated, undemocratic, and should be abolished and replaced with a national popular vote. Twice in my lifetime, the person who would go on to become the President of the United States was not elected by a majority of Americans. I've heard discourse about the Electoral College for years, as I'm sure you have. And I've done my research, especially this election year, let me tell you. Over the next few minutes, I will discuss the structure and purpose of the Electoral College, address the intended benefits of it and the arguments for keeping it, and ultimately explain why the Electoral College should be abolished and replaced. So, under this wacky system we have, how is a president exactly elected? Well, Encyclopedia Britannica explains that after votes are cast in November, state governments certify the election and send the tally of votes and lists of the party's electors to Congress. Each state is allocated electors based on its number of representatives, plus one vote for each of its senators. In December, electors meet to cast their votes. Most states use a winner-take-all system, but according to the American Bar Association, 2 states actually allow allocation by district. Those states are Maine and Nebraska. Electors are supposed to vote as those states and districts did, but that isn't always the case. These so-called faithless electors have existed in the past, but fortunately, it's never affected the outcome of an election. In January, Congress meets to tally up these votes and certify the election. Whoever receives 270 electoral votes, the majority of the 538, is declared the winner. In the event of a tie, the U.S. House of Representatives actually votes and chooses the winner. If you've seen Hamilton, you may recall this happening between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. So why do we go to all this trouble? Well, Gale's opposing viewpoint states that the Electoral College was installed with the intent of ensuring that the minority would not be unfairly silenced by the majority. In his op-ed for The Hill, Frank Gunter lays out some popular arguments for the Electoral College. He says it prevents a tyrannical government. A national popular vote could allow a majority to consolidate too much power. He states that it ensures small states have a voice and that without the Electoral College, he assumes that big states would just ignore the needs of small states altogether. He also goes on to state proudly that the Electoral College is undemocratic and that this is a good thing, as smaller states' votes are weighted heavier as an equalizer. And without the Electoral College, small states just couldn't survive politically. That all sounds pretty reasonable until you realize these are all arguments against the Electoral College. The Electoral College is undemocratic, and that is a bad thing. In a 2019 article for Brookings, Darrell West makes a very compelling case for the abolition of the Electoral College. He astutely points out that when this was all instituted, Congress had no faith in the, quote, poorly educated public, sort of hidden in their non-white, non-male, but I digress, didn't have any faith in them to be able to elect a president, and that they, the better educated, should be the ones to do so. He also goes on to state in this article that giving some votes more weight skews representation and destroys the fundamental idea of one person, one vote. A Brookings study actually found that 15% of counties, just 15, generate more than 60% of the country's GDP. So not only are more prosperous states subsidizing poorer states financially, also subsidizing them at the ballot box. And wouldn't you know it, support for the Electoral College, like everything else, is split on party lines. It was popular to want to abolish it for decades, but unsurprisingly, these party lines reflect who has most benefited from the Electoral College in recent years. It's clear the Electoral College needs to go. But what can we do? Well, there's a couple options. There's something called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. This has been signed by multiple states. The states pledge their electors to the winner of the popular vote. But unfortunately, this won't be effective until 270 votes are included in this compact. We can amend the Constitution, which is the best possible option. Do away with the whole thing. And we should make our will known to our representatives, because after all, if we're smart enough to elect them, surely we're smart enough to elect the president. Which brings me back to my original point that the Electoral College is purposefully undemocratic, effectively disenfranchises voters, and just doesn't work in today's America. The Electoral College was originally established to give small states a voice, but in reality, it helps them to dominate the conversation. It takes political power from productive states and gives that power, an undue amount of it, to what is often largely empty land. And while states are making movements towards ensuring that the person with the most votes wins, we're better off just throwing the whole thing out. Trying to fix the Electoral College is like polishing the brass on the Titanic. It's time we all jumped off.